So let's just say you talked about cupping. You talked about tasting coffee. So for the layperson, let's just say, what is a cupping? Like, what does it look like? What are we doing?
It's just a formal coffee tasting. We do call it cupping. They're usually done in smaller vessels, 6 to 8 ounces. Typically anywhere from it's normally a 1:18 ratio of coffee to water with any cupping, but depending on how large or small your vessel is, you'll do anywhere from like 8 to 12 grams of coffee. Grind the coffee, pour the hot water over top of it, let it steep. And first you'll evaluate the dry aroma, because I've always considered it kind of like you get to read the first chapter of a book. So it's like, okay, this is going to be good, or this isn't going to be that good,
Yeah.
or what is that in there? It's interesting. I got to find out more.
It's
and then
the onions and garlic and olive oil in the pan before you make whatever you're making.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
You were in the kitchen, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
I feel this.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get to enjoy the whole meal or read the whole book when you're evaluating wet aroma and tasting. So I think dry aroma is really important. And I sometimes can get more out of dry aroma than wet aroma. Sometimes it's the opposite. But the wet aroma, when you're evaluating wet aroma, that hot water is going to open up more like oils and gases. So yeah. You might say, oh, I smelt some sort of fruit in the dry aroma, and then with applying water, it's going to open it up and you'll say, oh, it's blueberry or whatever else.
Yeah, I think wet aroma is a challenge. It's a challenge for new cuppers, especially.
It just smells hot sometimes.
It smells hot. It smells like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You get the much more like brewed coffee aroma from it, so that can be predominant to where you think, well, it does smell like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to dig in a little bit on the wet aroma is always a challenge.
It is challenging, and I think that's the hardest part for anyone who wants to enjoy specialty coffee, but they don't know what the hype is.
Yeah.
But once you develop your palate, you're like, oh, I get what the hype is. Or if you have that one coffee and it's blows your mind.
Yeah, then you're always chasing that. I had a coffee that I feel like we were chasing for a long time, which was that natural process Colombian coffee from Guamera producer that we just hadn't ever tasted a natural coffee like that, and I think we've been looking for something like that ever since, even though in retrospect sometimes I just think that perhaps it was actually too funky, and that it was over processed.
There was something going on with it that wasn't right.
It was like lightning in a bottle, and like for about 2 days it was absolutely perfect, and it was amazing, and it tasted like all kinds of tropical fruit and like a pickled fermented watermelon, and we were just falling all over ourselves.
Yeah,
we
competed with it. Yeah. But wasn't it the green coffee? It was the green coffee that was going bad, right?
Well, so yeah, what ended up happening was over the course of time, that green coffee aged
badly.
And it aged badly. And it started to taste like, I thought that it started to taste like Pete's hot sauce.
Yeah, sriracha. I thought it tasted like sriracha.
And so it went from this like glorious tropical fruity experience to, actually we were at an event in a competition, I think, or we had submitted the coffee for a competition, for a roasting competition, and we tasted that coffee while we were there at the event and thought, oh no, like this coffee does not taste like it tasted before. So that, that coffee just lingers in my mind as a sort of like example of how your senses need to be so refined, because I think I was hooked by the romance of the coffee and tricked myself for too long into believing that coffee was still the most amazing coffee that I'd ever tasted, all the way up to the point where it was all the way bad.
And you heard everyone saying, "What's wrong with this coffee?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, what's wrong with this coffee?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so just, I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind as like a memory of making sure that I don't get too subjective and I don't get too connected to the romance
in
of
the
some
sauce,
lost in the sauce. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
You've got the wet aroma, you've got the wet cap of grounds sitting on top of your cup, a physical cup,
Yep.
right?
the coffee
In which
crust.
coffee and water are sitting together and you have a crust of wet coffee on the top of it. So what do you do then?
Okay, so there's a very specific technique with that where you're going to push the coffee grinds or the crust, the slurry, away from you. You get about 3 good tries of this. You can keep doing it if you want to, but you're going to be pushing the grinds away with you with a spoon that's kind of shaped like a soup spoon. And, breathe in, evaluate the wet aroma.
Yeah, that's the best time to do it, right?
Yes. With each push, and also while agitating the grinds on the bottom. So it's just kind of like opening everything up. It's like blooming.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, you can get a whole new array of aromatics with that, or you can start being able to pinpoint what you experienced in the dry aroma too. So aroma, we taste with 80% of what we smell. So making sure that, you evaluate the dry and the wet is very important.
Yeah.
And it's going to lead into, the tasting is the fun part for sure, but those aromatics are really important.
They're the entryway.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then once the coffee's reached a certain temperature, you're going to evaluate the flavor. And that's a lot of fun. We do that here at Red Rooster for, many reasons. We do it for quality control. We have like 2 or 3 different people who roast coffee. So I have to make sure everyone's following the same profile for coffees or a recipe. Yeah. And we also get a lot of samples in. So our head roaster will sample roast a lot of coffees. We will try a lot of them, decide if it's something we want to carry. And we also host public cuppings for the public to come in and experience it as well, do a tasting. But it's a really fun part of the industry.
When you get to tasting it, you're taking your soup spoon. It's a little bit deeper than a soup spoon because of the key part of cupping, which is the slurping.
Oh yeah, that is important.
And I mean, everybody
funny,
has different standards of which they hold themselves to or other people to with this slurping thing. And if you get into a room of like serious coffee professionals,
I don't even notice it anymore.
Then people are like whistling tunes with their cupping slurp, right?
And
yeah.
I've been in rooms with it's like who can do it the loudest.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of complaining about that and as well.
It can be distracting.
That it's obnoxious that people are just slurping as loud as humanly possible while people are trying to actually taste the coffee.
Yeah, especially if you're at a formal cupping where it's silent, where you're not supposed to talk about what you're experiencing in the cup. It can become distracting. But I don't know, I've kind of started tuning it out as well.
Yeah.
But that just comes with practice.
But anyway, around here, I mean, we have all different levels of experience in cupping, and we have people who are cupping loudly, and we have people who are just slurping a little bit.
And there is a purpose to it. We do it so that the liquid is spraying back behind our teeth and coating our entire palate so that we can pinpoint bitterness and sourness or acidity, sweetness, evaluate the tactile, like the mouthfeel. So we do it for a reason. It's not just
theatrics.
Yeah. It does serve a purpose. Normally when you're learning, you might choke a little bit.
Oh, several times.
It's pretty normal.
I choke now 15 years of experience. I still occasionally get
confident.
A little bit.
You're too confident.
Get a little in the back of your throat and it's all over. So, okay. So you're spraying the coffee all over your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Behind your teeth.
Sure do it.
I mean, that's the effect. That's what you're looking for. And so, you probably have tasted things. Everyone has tasted things where it tastes different from the front of your mouth to the back of your mouth. And we all have the experience of like salty sweet, bitter, tasting different in different places on your tongue and throughout your mouth, and the way it feels in your mouth. Like butter or milk feels different in your mouth than water or beer or wine or whatever other beverages you might be imbibing. You can feel a tactile difference, right? And the same is true with coffee, right? So some coffee has a bigger body, more syrupy body, a thicker, more tactile sensation that you can feel. And then the same goes for the flavor elements, which is to say that some is sweeter, some is more balanced, some is more acidic. And you will taste those things in different places on your mouth. So you want to fill your mouth completely up with it. And the aeration of it, the slurp, actually helps to foster the tasting as well.